code on
Try
this.
it again.
There we are.
Now, okay, there you go.
Let's put ourselves into the mindset of students and sit at the feet of our beloved teachers in true Upanishadic style, and just offer our namaha with gratitude and humility, and just be grateful that we have great beings we can follow, because otherwise we just follow our mind, which is not a great being. We could become a great being, but right now it's not. So that's the mood of knowledge systems in traditional India. So then these are invocations to our teachers. Om Ajnana. Where is the translation? Oh, there it is. Oh, I see. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshor Umilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So I'll just say a few things. You'll see there's a namaha, usually the last word. There's going to be the namaha. So you bring your guru to mind. You essentially create a mental image of the guru made of samskaras, and you request the presence of your guru. And then once the guru is manifested in the mind, then you do your namaha. What else are you going to do to your guru? And likewise with Ishvara. So you bring up the invocation, and you're familiar with the Patanjali, some of you, invocation, and the last line, namaha. It's no different than going to a temple and doing namaha before the deity. This just happens to be a deity made of mind stuff, samskara, memory. Memory is samskara, memory of your teachers. And Ishvara, you bring up a image from the text that you read. You read about your beloved Ishvara again and again and again and again and again. These descriptions of Krishna and his colors and his peacock feather and his flute and his dhoti and whatever form of Ishvara you're enamored by. If you're enamored by it, that means you don't get tired of reading about it. So then you have internalized that, every inch of that description. Then you bring that to mind. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshor Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauḍavani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatharine. Akanda Mandalakaram Yena Vyaptam Characharam Tat Padam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hey Krishna, Karuna Sindhu, Dina Bandhu, Jagatpati, Gopesha, Gopika Kanta, Radha Kanta, Namastite. Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe, Vrindavaneshwari, Vrishabhanu Sute Devi, Pranamami Hare Priya. Apavitra Pavitru Va, Sarvavastha Gatopi Va, Ya Smaret Pundarika Ksham, Sa Bhayabhyantara Shuchi. This is my teacher, little in India. Just a funky, this is in the temple room. It's the funky ashram. He was a Baba. And if you want to hear him speak, you can go on my website. And I think it says Edwin's Charity in India, and it takes you to the Goshala, and maybe on that page at the bottom, it says Edwin's Guru. And he's there, and it's like a 5 minutes. There he is with his beloved cows. He's just a Baba, just wearing an old cloth. And he had real dreadlocks. In other words, even his beard was dreadlocked. It wasn't. So that's a Goshala. So there's several hundred cows. And it's kind of medieval. Not well, it has electricity, but very pre-modern still. and hopefully we'll keep it that way. It's for Babas, the sadhus, Vrindavan. Nowadays they have all these big nouveau riche ashrams. It could be in Delhi, but there's still the old medieval Vrindavan lurking about here and there. But of course, real estate now has become so it's like Delhi real estate. So what happens is all the mobsters kick out the old bubbas. They kill them sometimes, because the old system of inheritance was just an old piece of paper, and then the guru would give it to a disciple, and everybody respected that. But now, because Delhi's become so rich, nouveau riche, so all of the now they built the new expressway to Agra. It's just 2 hours to Vrindavan. It used to be 4 hours on a funky old 5 hours on a funky old road. So now all the nouveau riche are coming to Vrindavan and buying up land and building marble ashrams and temples. And they, I mean, that's nice. Why not? Why can't they do that? But now the land is the premium, and then the mobsters move, what they call the goondas in Hindi. Goondas. The mobsters move in, and all the babas move out. They move out to the outlying holy places like Govardhan Hill, where Krishna lifted the mountain on his little finger. They move out to the places which are less on the pilgrimage trail. So it's quite sad, but inevitable. I'm now going to mute everybody, and we'll start. How do I do that? Participants. Mute all? I thought I did that already. Okay.
But Acharya-ji, you remember we left.
I just muted you. I'm sorry, Premananda.
No problem. I just wanted to mention verse 24, by means of my beautiful limbs. Okay.
24, yeah. Thank you for bringing us back to what we should be doing, which is the Bhaktirasāmṛtasindhu. Well, let's connect what I just said with Rūpa Gosvāmi, the author of this text. They lived under trees in literally the medieval Vrindavan. There were just babas there. And then Caitanya, who spearheaded this revival of Krishna Bhakti, he went to Vrindavan. It was just jungle. And there were a few babas, maybe, who kind of knew that Krishna was supposed to have performed his leelas there. There were no temples, nothing. So Caitanya went around and identified the sites where Krishna performed his various leelas. And then his disciples, the 6 Gosvāmis, one of whom is the author of our text. That's how I'm making the connection. Rūpa Gosvāmi, who authored the Bhaktirasāmṛtasindhu. They were just living under trees. Babas, like my guru, is still in that mode, in that way of understanding Krishna Bhakti and Vrindavan. But then they got the Maharajas of Jaipur and the big Hindu kings to sponsor the huge temples that then became the kernel of the modern holy town of Vrindavan. So now there's the seven huge temples, and then the town developed around it. So we now have about 4 pages trivializing moksha. Remember, one of the 6 symptoms of bhakti is the definition of bhakti. One of them is the trivialization of moksha. And it's interesting, and it goes on for 3 or 4 pages, and we are going to read them, my friends, because why does Rupa take so much time? We just touched on it last time. Because most people think the goal of moksha is, that of Patanjali, or that of Advaita Vedanta, or that of the Atman-seeking paths, which are most of the paths. Jnāya, Sankhya, Yoga, Advaita Vedanta are Atman-seeking paths. And Rupa wants to make it really clear that this type of bhakti, the Vaishnava Krishna Bhakti, it accepts an eternal, real Bhagavan who is the ultimate causal truth, who is the support of Brahman, as Krishna says in the Gita, Brahmano hi pratishtaham. If somebody's, I'm going to mute everybody again, because I can hear some sounds there. So he's really taking pains to make this point that, fine, you can seek moksha, seek the Atman, but then you're missing out on eternal loving relationship with Bhagavan. And I'm also going, and part of my mission, if you will, I don't like that word, but part of what my teachers, imbibed in me was the same thing. Not to reject other forms of liberation, but to make it clear that amongst the various moksha options, that the different traditions present us, don't think they're all the same. They are not. That's so superficial to say all the paths are different, but they lead to one truth. That's just a superficial, I wouldn't even, it's just a very convenient sort of super, it's not the case. So this tradition wants to make it really, really clear that amongst the various options of liberated states, one of them is an eternal relationship with Bhagavan, and one who attains that then loses all interest in moksha, because whatever bliss there is in the Atman is insignificant. The Satchidananda Atman is insignificant, even if it attains its infinite potential, Brahman potential is insignificant compared to, and we had that metaphor, the ocean compared to the water in the footprint of a calf, right? No more talking from me, but be prepared for several pages minimizing moksha, and we're going to do it because most of the gurus that came to the West in the 60s taught Atman or Brahman moksha. So you want to make it very clear, and that's totally legitimate, very noble, and worthwhile goal, but it isn't the goal of this tradition. So there is never a desire. Let's 24. I think we got up to 24. Someone just said, by means of my beautiful limbs, the bhaktas fall in love with God. Exciting play, that's Leela. The beautiful stories, butter stealing, you bumped into, encountered some of the stories, no doubt. My smile, my sight, lovely speech, devotion seizes the soul and senses of those who do not desire moksha. If you desire moksha, you don't desire Bhagavan then, unless you want, remember, unless you want Bhagavan to give you moksha, like Patanjali, then you're not really seeking Bhagavan. You're not seeking love of Bhagavan. I know I've made this point, but it's going to be repeated, and then we move on. And Rupa's really taking some trouble to establish this. And now he has to support this, remember. So Bhagavat Purana, 3rd canto, 4th chapter. O Lord, which of the 4 goals of life culminating in moksha, right? So the 4 goals of life are dharma, you do your dharma, as a result of which the 2nd goal, artha, you get material well-being. This is not yoga goals. These are the conventional worldly goals. 2nd is artha, material well-being. Then kama, then you enjoy, you satisfy as long as you're dharmic about it. And finally, you get frustrated from that, because indulgence can never satisfy, gratification can never satisfy, desires can never satisfy, and then you seek moksha. So which of the 4 goals of life culminating in moksha is difficult to attain for those devoted to your lotus feet? If you want God to give you those, remember the 4, I think we looked at it last week. Krishna says in the Gita, 4 types of people seek me. One wants wealth, one is distressed, one's in need, and one wants more. One wants jnāna, and that's one extra. And the wise, the one who doesn't want anything, just knows that there is a God and seeks God. So, but if you want the other ones, this verse is saying, well, which of them is difficult to attain for those devoted to your lotus feet? God will give them to you. Just like Patanjali, Ishwar Pranidhana Samadhi Siddhya. Therefore, O Lord of abundance, I, who am anxious to serve your lotus feet, do not ask for any of them. I don't want them. And remember, service is love. And then Kapila, who is the founder of Sankhya, 3rd canto. Some do not desire oneness with me. This is Advaita Vedanta, that you merge, the Atman merges, although technically it doesn't really merge. I mean, we use that language, but really what happens is illusion is lifted. There's no merging going on. In Advaita Vedanta, you are that all-pervading, ultimate Brahman, but due to Maya, you don't recognize it. But in the Vaishnavas consider that to be merging into the effulgence of God. I don't understand why I keep muting everybody, but someone's mic is on. I don't know why it's not being muted. Would you all kindly just mute yourselves?
Because it's people entering, Edwin.
Oh, I have to keep doing it. But I say, anyway, please mute yourselves when you come in. Right. So they don't. So oneness, and in this tradition, the goal of that which the Advaita Vedanta tradition speaks of is actually emerging into the effulgence of Bhagavan, but the effulgence without realizing that there is a supreme being from which the effulgence emanates. So this is the difference between the schools. And of course, Advaita Vedanta would say, oh, well, this Ishvara is all well and good. Bhagavan's well and good. As long when you're in the world of Maya, you should do your bhakti, you should worship Bhagavan. But when you become enlightened, everything dissolves. There's no Ishvara, there's no creation, there's no world, there's no you. There's just all-pervading infinite Brahman. So they would, for them, Bhagavan is a sort of is part of the cosmic illusion, actually, ultimately. So there's a very big difference between the Vedanta traditions here, and we'll talk more about it. But this here, the bhaktas don't want oneness. They don't want to merge into Brahman and just be an impersonal state. Those devotees who are enchanted with me, they fall in love with God. Notice the language, enchanted, etc. What did we have before? You know, attracted to the smile. Delight in serving. Remember, service is love. If you love someone, you want to make them happy, you serve. In serving my feet and enjoy telling each other about my manly deeds. Well, I don't know what the Sanskrit is for there. It's a bit of an odd translation. And so devotees love to talk about the stories and chant them and sing about them and so forth, the bhaktas. Once we have a taste, then you just fall in love, you know, just like mothers love to talk about little stories of their babies and what they've been up to. And again, even if the 5 kinds of moksha are offered, we've touched on these before, 4 of them are personalist, where you receive a divine Satchidananda body, so you can have variegated relationships with Bhagavan, right? And one is impersonal. There's no body, no mind, no nothing, just infinite, an experience of infinite, all-pervading bliss. And if you're going to have a relationship, you need instruments with which to engage in a relationship. So like we have instruments in order to engage with Prakriti in the world of Maya. We have instruments, eyes, ears, nose, and in that way, we can experience and interact with the objects of the senses in samsara and with each other. Well, the same holds true if you want to have a relationship with Bhagavan. You need instruments and you need an environment and you need variegatedness. So there's not just some sort of static activity. There's infinitely variegated. So the divine realm is kind of like this is like a duplicate of that, except this is made of matter, the 3 gunas, and temporary and subject to suffering and old age and disease. The divine realm is made of pure consciousness, but the forms are made of condensed consciousness. There's no time, there's no suffering, there's only, but there are forms. So Krishna has a form, Vishnu, and the infinite forms, that's infinite Vishnu's, infinite Krishna. Remember when Krishna's dancing with the gopis, each gopi has her own Krishna. So the devotees have forms as well, according to their desire. Meaning, according to the way they want to serve Bhagavan, they're given a form that accommodates that service. Just like the forms in this realm are the result of our desires and karma, well, we get the bodies that we're stuck in right now. It's the same there. But the difference is there, everything is centered on God. So you want to serve God and love God in a certain way, you get a spiritual body. What does spiritual mean? Satchidananda, made of Brahman, not the gunas, eternal bodies. So we'll talk more about it. So 4 of these co-residents in the same world, the same realm, Vaikuntha, equality in power, proximity, similarity in form, or even union. That's the impersonal one. That's the sort of the Brahmavada. That's sort of becoming one with Brahman. But the devotees don't want any of them unless they facilitate service. My devotees do not accept anything but my service, just love. Pardon me, I've been cleaning the house all day. And Dhruva in the 4th canto, we read this in the talk last night. Oh Lord, that bliss experienced by human beings from meditating on your lotus feet or listening to stories about your devotees cannot be experienced even in glorious Brahman. Why is it glorious? The Upanishads talk about it from beginning to end. Well, right, most of the jnana paths seek Brahman, the paths of knowledge, jnana, Advaita, even Patanjali through dhyana, that they're seeking that glorious Brahman. Why is it glorious? Because so great sages and rishis have told us about it, aspired for it. Jivan muktas. Bhaktas don't want it. So So that bliss cannot be experienced even in Brahman, which is by nature blissful, Satchidananda, remember. How then can it be experienced by those falling from celestial realms that are destroyed by the sword of death? So in other words, if even those who attain Brahman can't experience the bliss of bhakti, what to speak of those who go to a celestial realm? I know that doesn't mean much to us now, but in ancient India, if you did good karma, you're not a yogi, you're not a jnani, you're not, just a regular person doing, worldly things, and you want to go to the celestial realm in the next life. So he's saying that, if even those who attain Brahman, if bhaktas are not interested in that, how on earth are they going to be interested in celestial realms, basically? On we go. So we're going to keep on at this, my friend. Let's respect Rupa. Let's not skip over in a rajasic fashion and say, okay, I get the point. We don't get the point. We got the point. We'll be jivan muktas. As you keep doing it and doing it and doing it, just like you do with your asanas. You do your downward dog again and again and again, and you still don't get it. And each time you go deeper. So this is repetitive, but pedagogy is repetitive. Rupa really wants to get it into our heads that the goal of conventional yoga, of the moksha goal of jnana paths and meditational paths, the bhaktas do not seek it. Now, the same canto, Bhagavad Purana 4:20. Oh Lord, I never desire even moksha, where there is no nectar of your lotus feet. Right? If you were absorbed in Brahman, there's no nectar, there's no sound, there's no form, there's no quality. There's nothing. Well, there's just pure Satchidananda consciousness. He's saying, I don't want that. I want to hear about your stories. I'm in love with God. I don't want to just be absorbed in Svarupa Vastana, in my own nature. Even if it is blissful, even if I am free from suffering of samsara. There's no nectar in moksha, nectar of your lotus feet, flowing out of the mouths from the innermost hearts of great saints. If you hear these stories, my friend, from the mouth of someone in love with God, you may have read that story 1,000 times. Maybe you thought, oh, this is a nice, whatever, Hindu mythology. Oh, it's a quaint little story. Oh, it's, like our fairy tales in the West. Whatever you think of it, you hear those stories with someone whose heart is permeated with love. You won't be thinking those stories of mythology. Be careful, they'll creep up on you. Their stories will enter your mind and capture your mind. This is my wish. Please give me 10,000 ears so I may enjoy this nectar. I want to just hear, all the stories. 2 ears are not enough. I want 10,000. Now, 5th canto, Shuka, right? Remember the Bhagavatam has 12 books, and it's the 10th book where we find the story of Krishna. That's what makes the Bhagavata Purana famous, but it actually has 12. And these are the earlier cantos. King Bharata does not long for a kingdom, sons, relative, power, or wife, all very difficult to give up. Nor does he long for Shri, the goddess of wealth, desired by even the best of gods. This is the consort of Vishnu, Lakshmi, Shri, Lakshmi, who had looked upon him with kindness. Doesn't want any of that. That is how it should be. Even moksha is worthless for the great ones whose minds are attached to the service of Krishna. Okay, we're going to read every single one, friends. We're going to honor the text. 6th canto, Shri Vrita. He was a demon, but he was born in the family of demons, but he was a great bhakta. And the Bhagavatam loves to have these stories of normally excluded, demons and lower caste, and loves to sort of glorify them for their bhakti and show them to be greater than all the Brahmins and all the caste Brahmins and all of that. Bhakti in general does that in all traditions. It sort of undermines Brahminical hegemony and arrogance and caste elitism, and loves to highlight the outcasts and women as well, because women, normally excluded from Vedanta study and Vedic ritualism. So some of the most powerful stories in bhakti come from those normally marginalized. So Vritra is a demon. If it means separating myself from you, O excellent one, I do not want the highest heaven. This is the celestial realm in Prakriti, nor that supreme realm connected to Brahma, which is the highest celestial, nor lordship over the entire universe, nor dominion over the underworld, nor yogic powers, all the cities, nor even moksha. If any of that means separating myself from you, from my mind being absorbed in you, I don't want any of it. And this is Shiva here. In the words of Sri Rudra, in the Bhagavatam 6th. All those devoted to Narayana fear nothing whatsoever. They even regard heaven, remember heaven, celestial realm, moksha, and hell as equal. How is moksha hell? Because if you're in a state of moksha, you're separated from God. You might as well be in hell. Well, a bit like the Christian hell, right? That's where people who have separated themselves from God, right? At least in medieval Christianity, hopefully moved on a little bit from those kinds of attitudes now, but equal to hell. Why is hell meaning? What is hell here? Hell is being deprived of the opportunity to serve God and certainly think about and absorb one's mind in God. Indra, king of the celestials, right? Brahma is the sort of more power, but Indra is sort of the warrior king of the celestials. Brahma is the kind of sage, secondary creator type celestial. But here's Indra. Those who worship the Lord without desire for anything, not even wanting moksha, are considered to be clever at attaining their own aim. In other words, they're smart. They're going for the greatest bliss that is available. And that comes from relationship with God. Prahlad, another child bhakta, also born in the family of demons. When the internal and primeval sources of all is pleased, right, Bhagavan, what is unattainable for us who are singing about his 2 feet and enjoying their nectar? Kirtan, right? We had that kirtan when a few minutes before class, Madhuram. It's all about Krishna's beautiful eyes, beautiful face, beautiful love. The whole bhajan is. What is the use of dharma, artha, and karma, right? 3 goals of life. And the 4th one's coming up. You know what dharma is? Artha is material gain. And karma, you know what that is. Everybody knows what karma is, right? Karma sutras are all over the place. What is the use of that? Which are accomplished here naturally by the movements of ordinary qualities. The gunas will give you that. The ordinary qualities, the gunas, you'll get that naturally. You don't have to aspire for it. Your karma will give you whatever you're going to get. You get that stuff naturally. And what is the use of moksha, which is normally greatly coveted by the great jñānis, the great rishis, many of them, Upanishadic sages? What's the use of it if it separates us from Bhagavan, which it does? When you're Swarupa Vastanam, then you're Sva Rupa Vastanam. You're in your Sva, your own essence. You made that choice. That's why it's hell for bhaktas, because you made a choice that separates you from your beloved, from the beloved Bhagavan. Indra, same canto. O Supreme Lord, the portion of the sacrifice that has been returned to us is actually yours, our protector. This is the old Vedic sacrifice, right? So you throw things into the flames. This is the earliest religion in literary Indian history, right? The Rig Veda, the 3 Vedas, not so much the 4th. And the early, Brahmana texts are about Vedic ritualism, and the offerings are made for the celestials. So Indra is the chief of the celestials, at least the warrior sort of chief, and they receive a portion of the sacrifice. So it's transported to the gods by Agni, which is the Lord, the god of fire, like we say, ignition and ignite. So Agni, same Indo-European. So it's carried up to the god in the subtle form, obviously. It's consumed by the flames. And Agni, who is the flame, has a celestial form and a terrestrial form. All these deities have celestial forms and terrestrial forms. So the Ganga is a goddess and she's a river. The Vedas are books and they're celestial. So all the celestials, Surya is the sun and he's the celestial who controls the sun. Right? You do Surya Namaskar. So he's saying they really belong to you because we're just your peons. We're just your agents. You're our protector. You have awakened our lotus-like hearts, your own abode that had been attacked by the demons. What is he saying? You have awakened our lotus-like hearts, your own abode. Okay, their hearts are the abode of God because he keeps God in his heart. Heart, of course, meaning mind. Usually, often it says heart, 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 but it really means mind, mind, mind. Why does it say heart? Because the heart, the place where the heart is supposed to be the locus from which the Atman consciousness radiates around the body, and the mind also along with it. So therefore, it's sometimes you just say the heart. oh Lord, so had been attacked by the demons. But, the demons and the celestials are always having this ongoing kind of cosmic battle. Oh Lord, how great is the grandeur of this heaven. Remember heaven's celestial realm. How great is it when it's devoured by time? What's the use of it? We think it's great. Oh, everybody wants to go to the celestial realm. It's devoured by time. How great is it for those desirous of serving you, eternal being? They're seeking an eternal relationship, not some temporary stint in a celestial realm. They do not even consider moksha to be great, or Narasimha, the great incarnation of Vishnu, half man, half lion. What then is the value of other aims? If they don't even consider moksha to be great, what's the value of other aims of human pursuit for them? And even Gajendra, great elephant bhakta, even animals, the point is everyone, no one is excluded from bhakti. Those who are singly devoted and have completely surrendered themselves to the Lord ask for nothing whatsoever. That's why they're Babas. They sit under the tree. They live really, really, really super simply. I'm heading that way, my friends. Give me another 10 years. Come and visit me in Vrindavan. You'll find me under a tree. Singing about his extremely marvelous and intensely auspicious acts, they're sunk in an ocean of bliss, Ananda. The ocean of bliss, remember? And the bliss of the Atman is like the water in the footprint of a calf. Why? Because the Atman's tiny, like a footprint of a class and the footprint of a cow. And Bhagavan is infinite. It's like the ocean. So how can you compare the water of a footprint with the ocean? How can you compare the bliss of a tiny spark of God with God? This is not Advaita. These are Vishishta Dvaita traditions where God is a distinct being, my friends. Lord of Vaikuntha, as Narayan. My devotees do not wish for the 4 types of moksha, right? Remember them, co-residence in the same. For a personalist means that, you're with God and God's a person and you worship God and you have a spiritual form that we touched upon. So 4 of them are personalist, and let's see what he has to say about the 5th. Such as, what are the 4 personalists? You reside in the same world, etc. They're listed elsewhere. That are obtained by service to me. They're content with serving me. Why then should they wish for other goals that are destroyed by time? Notice he doesn't even mention the 5th hit in this verse. The 5th one is that of not personalist, impersonal, where you don't get a spiritual form. You just jettison your material form. You attain nirbeja samadhi, or you've attained, jñāna, vidya, you've attained pure knowledge, and then you die, and that's it. No more karma. The gross body goes back to the elements as it always does, but this time the subtle body does too. So now there's no subtle body. What's containing the Atman now? Nothing. It was contained in the subtle body. And now what happens to the Atman? Well, when it's not contained, it's like air in a balloon. Take the balloon out, well, what happens to the air? Well, now it merges into the totality of air. So that liberation, he doesn't even mention it. That's how disinterested. There's 5 types of liberation in the Vaishnava traditions. Right. The snake Kaliya, his wives, those who've attained the dust from your feet. Notice the metaphor. Even the dust from the feet of Bhagavan. This is what the devotees actually pray for. Just to be a speck of dust, not even at the feet of Bhagavan, just a speck of dust in Vrindavan, in the hope that Krishna will step on them one day in eternity. That's the humility, and that's also just underscores the bliss that even just if Bhagavan just steps on you and you remember everything is conscious in that realm. So if you're a speck of dust, you're a conscious speck of dust, and you're in ecstasy because you're part of the divine realm, and your ecstasy just comes from contemplating the possibility that Bhagavan will actually step on you. Yeah, Bhagavan always does. He'll always satisfy his bhaktas. So devotees don't think, oh, I want to be a gopi. I want to be a hotshot, gopi. I'm the highest. But no, they think, let me just be a blade of grass. Who am I to think I'm going to be a gopi? So humility. Okay. So those who attain the dust from your feet no longer wish for the highest heaven, remember celestial, no lordship over the entire universe like Indra we just met, the warrior god, or Brahma, the creator. Nor that supreme realm connected to Brahma, there's Brahma, right? He's got the highest realm in samsara, nor dominion over the underworld. The underworld, there's some powerful siddhas, they're asuras, they're demons, meaning they hate Vishnu, but they could be, but they're powerful yogis, they can, change their shapes and all kinds of things. It's a powerful, no yogic powers. Well, we've had this before, no moksha. Even Patanjali rejects yogic powers, my friends, doesn't he? The Vedas, see now the Vedas are both books and they're also entities. So here they're praising. Some people have left their homes to associate with the highest swan-like saints. The Bhagavatas, the Bhaktas, are compared to swans. And I can't remember where I read this, but a swan is supposedly able to separate, if you mix milk and water, it's supposed to be able to separate the milk from the water. So therefore one can be in this world and in the world of samsara, but if the mind is absorbed in Bhagavan, it's like that one is taking the milk and separating, the mind is absorbed in Bhagavan, sort of, like separating milk from water. I'm not sure though, where that, it's called Paramahamsa. And I'm not sure where that idea is actually stated, that about the swan, the reason why they're compared to swans. Did I just skip a page? Where were we? Yeah. The reason why they're called saints, very common, Parama, supreme, Hamsa. Hamsa is a word for swan, ancient word. That's why in German you have Lufthansa, Luftair, Hansa, the air swan. So how is that? How is that? Because the word goes back to ancient Indo-European. But the Hamsas are the Paramahamsas, the supreme swans, is a name given for the highest bhaktas. And the only explanation I had for that was what I just shared with you, but I don't know where that comes from. I have to chase that down someday. Because I vaguely remember someone saying, no, that's not why it's a Paramahamsa, but I can't remember. All right. So some people have learned to associate, right? Bhaktas always want to associate with other bhaktas, especially those more dedicated and devoted, because then you become inspired and you say, I want that. I want to have that level of devotion. When I first met the bhaktas in Vrindavan, I wasn't that attracted to, I thought it was a bit weird, really, Krishna. Blue, I thought it was a bit odd. It wasn't like I was instantly fell in love with God or anything, not at all. I thought it was all slightly weird. And, but I saw the bhaktas were intense. They were just ecstatic. They owned nothing. They were serving all day. And I said, I'd gone to India to become a monk. I made a vow, I'll never go back to the West. And I'd gone, hitchhike, one of these characters, hitchhike, no money, and a couple of years, get there, all that whole odyssey that was not unusual in the 60s and 70s before Tehran closed down and the Afghan-Russian war. And I wanted some of that with the bhaktas, and I just thought, I'll whatever they have, I'm going to take it seriously. And it took time for me to actually become attracted to Krishna. But I was very attracted to bhaktas. So here's something similar to that. And we'll see that as one of the 64 ingredients of bhakti. So some people have left their homes to associate with the highest swan-like saints at your lotus feet. They want to associate with those that have bhakti. And they've overcome existential fatigue, so it's a metaphor, right? By swimming in the ocean of the sweet nectar of stories related to you. And you hear these stories, you just lose sense of time, and you just get transported to a place of satisfaction and bliss. It's true. And I want to thank you all for sharing this with me, because this is what bhaktas, this is what we live for. Just to discuss these beautiful texts and share them together and study them together. Oh Lord, who have assumed this is not right, physical body, because it's not physical, it should be a body. Assumed a body for the purpose of revealing the true nature of yourself. So in other words, Krishna incarnates, right? So he manifests a form, which is so difficult to understand. these people did not wish even for moksha. So all of these verses we're reading, this section of the text is about the trivialization of moksha. Let's keep our eye on the ball. Okay, then we move on to another section. But he's really spent a lot of time here because he really, really wants to make this point. Because in Bengal in the 16th century, when this Krishna explosion occurred, and most people were either Advaita Vedantins or Shaktas, especially worshippers of Kali, because this is Bengal, right? Kali, Calcutta, Kali Ghat. So the Kali is basically a Bengali deity. You don't see Kali down south. Well, you might nowadays, but you wouldn't have seen Kali down south or north or west. She was very much the Bengali goddess. So that would have been the main. You know, if you read, we're reading the story of Chaitanya right now in our Rutgers course, and you'll see that Bengal is permeated with Kali bhaktas. At the landscape of Chaitanya's, you know, when he's going around ecstatically chanting Krishna's name, the main spiritual traditions were Kali and Advaita. And so he has lots of stories with him interacting with those two different kinds of communities. So Rūpa really wants to establish this. And both of those seek, the goal of them is moksha. And Rūpa wants to say, in the Krishna tradition, we accept a real Bhagavan who's eternally real, a supreme being, and those who seek that Bhagavan are not interested in moksha. Because if, again, I know I'm repeating myself, if you attain moksha, you have just severed your opportunity of having an eternal relationship with Bhagavan. Interesting question, though, is if you do attain moksha, is that it? Are you know, it's kind of like the old Christian hell. You're in hell forever and ever and ever. So if it's for a bhakta, if being absorbed in your own blissful eternal nature is hell in the sense that you've just separated yourself from God, do you get another chance? It's a really interesting question. And the Bhagavatam will say you actually can't stay even in moksha. Eventually but I don't want to go there. Maybe we can discuss that another time. In other words, you do get another chance. In the word of the Lord in 11th canto, my steady, focused, and saintly devotees want nothing whatsoever, even if I offer them moksha. Who offers them? Where do we know of Ishvara offering moksha? How about Patanjali? Right? What do you do? What's the role of Ishvara Patanjali? Well, tasya vachaka pranavaha, he comes as Om. And what do you do with that? Tajapa, you chant Om, you chant it. No love, no relationship. And then chapter 2, Ishvara Pranidhana Samadhi Siddhir. He'll give it to you if that's what you want. So Krishna, Bhagavan will give it to you. He'll give you whatever you want. He'll give you material things. That's what most people seek from God. So he says, look, my steady, focused, and saintly devotees want nothing whatsoever. Even if I offer them moksha, hey, do you want moksha? No, they don't want it. No, we want to stay serving your lotus feet. One whose self has been offered to me does not crave that supreme realm. Same thing. I know it's being repetitive. Let's get it into our heads. Brahma is a celestial being, nor the Indra, right? The heaven. I never translated it as heaven because it gets confused with the Christian heaven. If you say celestial realm, it makes it clearer that we're not talking about a liberated realm. We're just talking about a realm of good karma. So they don't want, you know, even the two highest beings in the celestial realms, Brahma, the secondary creator, Indra, the sort of warrior god, no lordship over the entire universe, no dominion. Did we have this? It's almost identical. Yeah, sometimes this is almost identical. That's interesting. Or am I going backwards? Have I just gone backwards? No.
42 is okay.
Oh, okay. He craves nothing except for me. Again, Sri Rudra in the 12th canto. The great sage Markandeya has attained the highest devotion to the imperishable Lord in the form of a person. Devotees want personalist ultimate goal, post-mortem liberation, but of a personalist type where they can serve God. Therefore, he never desires any blessing, not even moksha. Now he goes from the Bhagavatam. So first of all, he exhausts his canonical text, Rūpa. But now he wants to show that it's all over the place in Indian. This idea is not just in the Bhagavatam. Otherwise, you could just say, well, the Bhagavatam is a little bit idiosyncratic and an exception. to the normal jnana, quest for moksha. Now he's going to quote the Padma Purana. There's 18 great Puranas, and Padma is very Vaishnava. And Vishnu Purana is the Purana of, the Guruji Iyengar, that lineage, Krishnamacharya. You'll find the same language there all over the place. So Vishnu Purana and the Padma. But the Vishnu Purana is the Sri Vaishnava, that's Guruji Iyengar's Krishnamacharya. Oh God, I do not ask for the highest goal of moksha, nor any of the other goals that culminate in moksha. We're familiar, but let's just repeat them. Dharma, artha, kama. You build up your repertoire, my friends, your vocabulary. Nor for anything else from you who are the Lord of all boons. You can give all boons. Goes against God. Most traditions in the world, that's what they seek. So Lord of all boons, everybody's saying, give me, give me. But this I do ask from you, O beautiful Lord. May you always, now I'm going to make one request. What's that going to be? May you always remain manifest in my mind in the form of the cowherd boy. This is what we can pray for. We say, give me that. That's fine. We cannot. That's a give me. What that resonates with bhakti. That's a bhakti give me. Just give me. He's not asking for, for access, for actual direct contact with Bhagavan. He's just saying, let it remain in my mind. He's thinking, I'm unworthy of entering the divine realm. I'm unworthy of taking birth when Krishna's incarnating. Who do I think I am that I reach that kind of purity of bhakti? But let me ask this: just remain manifest in my mind in the form of the cowherd boy. This is my bhav, my friends. Okay. There, Krishna and the cowherd boys. See? That's Krishna, and next to him is blue is Krishna, next to him is his brother Balaram, and all the little gopas. And that's what the kingdom of God looks like in the Krishna tradition. And Vishnu has more majestic, he has very majestic realms. So I'm gonna stop the share. There we are. Cowherd boy, that's where it's at, my friends. Just as you freed the two sons of Kubera, that's one of the Krishna Leela stories, right? Leela, meaning the activities of Krishna. We don't have to relate the story, but it's in the 10th book. From their form of bondage and cause them to experience devotion, so may you grant me your own devotion of supreme love. So you can, it's fine to ask, give me for love and free, you're not asking for, the point is you're not asking for any material thing, not even moksha, because moksha is kind of material. What is moksha? Moksha is, I am suffering. Who's I? The body, mind, I is suffering because the Atman never suffers. So body, mind, I want to be free of suffering. And therefore I seek the state that the sages talk about, which is free of suffering. And what's that? Sarupe Vastanam, Advaita Vedanta would have its own way of framing it, right? That, I seek that state of pure vidya, of knowledge, of wisdom, of knowing Brahman, everything's Brahman. So even moksha is ultimately connected to the body, mind, self. You seek moksha because the body, mind, self is suffering. So, but this kind of request of requesting devotion and that the mind never forgets God, that's the bhakti. Bhaktas request that. That's the gimme of the bhaktas. Give me bhakti. Let me never forget you. You're not asking for anything for body, mind. That's the point. You're asking for service. You're asking for, just give me a service. Give me, devotion so that my mind can remain fixed. That kind of give me the association of bhaktas. That give me is the give me of bhakti. I do not seek moksha o damodara. And another text. So this is another text again. O Lord who grants all boons. I do not ask for you remember the four goals of life, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. I desire only the surface at your lotus feet. Padma again, Padma Purana. I revere Prahlad, a little boy demon, who accepted only devotion and refused all boons offered again and again by Vishnu. Even moksha, Vishnu appears to him and tries to get him to accept these boons. If God gives you something, you're going to say no? Well, yeah, Prahlad did. He said, no, I don't want it. Don't want none of it. I just want bhakti. He actually turns God down. How about that? Put that on your CV. God offered me this, that, and the other. I said no. Glory be to Hanuman. Now we're shifting into, the beautiful story of Ram, another form of Vishnu. Glory be to Hanuman who asked not for moksha. Same thing in the Ramayana, my friends. This is real Vaishnavism. Even though he could have obtained it effortlessly from Vishnu, the son of Dasharatha, that's his dad. But he asked for nothing but devotional service, bhakti. The words of Sri Hanuman are well known. Hanuman is such a wonderful bhakta. Dasya bhav, his bhav is that of a servant. He just wants to serve Ram. He doesn't want to play with Ram. He doesn't want to be a gopi, none of that. He wants to service. It's interesting because of the 4 bhavs we get to when we get to the next chapter. The 5 bhavs, 4 main bhavs. One is the beloved, that's the gopis. One is the parental, that's Yashoda. One is friendship, like the picture on my wall with the little boys who are Krishna's equals. And one is servitorship. And when the Krishna, even though they're heavy-duty Krishna tradition, when they want to give an example, all the examples they come from Krishna Leela, Krishna stories, but they want to, when they get to the 4th bhav, Dasya, they always refer to Hanuman. No one can beat Hanuman in his service to Ram. So even the Krishna bhaktas have to tip their hat, they have to take their hat off with just namaha to Hanumanji when it comes to Dasya bhav, which is the bhav of servitorship. So Hanuman says, I don't design moksha, which cuts one's connection with the world, right? When people seek moksha because they want to get out of the world of suffering, they want to get old and die and all that. Why? What is it? And it destroys. What else does it destroy? Okay, fine. It destroys the connection of the world. But look what else it is. So it destroys the relationship expressed as you are the Lord and I am the servant. That's what Hanuman wants. If he attained moksha, he wouldn't be able to do this. Why not? Because he'd be infinitely, he wouldn't have a body, he wouldn't have a mind. He would just be Satchidananda, all-pervading, eternal conscious bliss. We don't want that. Look, read it again. This is Hanuman now. I do not desire moksha, which cuts one's connection with the world, fair enough, but it destroys the relationship. What relationship? The relationship expressed as, you are the Lord, Ram, and I am the servant, eternally. Don't want any of this moksha business to disrupt that. And this is the Narada Pancharatra, ancient ritualistic text from South India. I have no wish for dharma, artha, kama, moksha. May I be granted a life under your lotus feet. Okay, I ask not for moksha, nor co-resident. These are kind of person lists that even the Krishna tradition rejects the 5th, the Atman one, but they say, okay, we can accept the other 4 provided it includes service. We can, obviously, if you're living in the same realm as Vishnu and so forth, well, not necessarily, obviously. But anyway, I ask not for moksha, nor co-residence in the same world, or similarity in form or support of the world. I desire only your compassion, whatever that means. 6th canto of the Bhagavatam. A person who has achieved a tranquil, now back to the Bhagavatam, a tranquil self and is completely devoted to Narayana is extremely difficult to find, even among millions of those saints who have achieved moksha, great sage. So the point here is that a real bhakta who is 100% purely devoted to Bhagavan there might be millions who have had a Swarupa Vastanam experience, and obviously being rhetorical here, a little bit bombastic, but to make this point, to find a real, completely devoted to Narayana, not like us, 50-50, as my teacher would always say, 50-50. I think I've told you the story before, but it's a lovely story. We would always say, my guru would always say, Aap log sab 50-50 wale hai. Because he was very old, so he didn't have any teeth. 50, we say, they only knew one word of English, 50-50. Who knows where he picked it up from? Aap log sab 50-50 wale hai, so kuch nahi milta hai. You people are all 50-50. You won't get anything like that. 50-50 meaning you want your bhoga, you want your yoga, you want a little bhakti, a little kirtan, and then you want to go down to Starbucks and have a triple latte, whatever you drink. So here it's completely, my friends, completely devoted to Narayana. It's very difficult, extremely difficult to find. You find lots of bhaktas, of course. India's full of bhaktas, but completely devoted. That's another story. So then another verse from Sri Dharmaraj in the first canto. How can we women understand you who have come for the purpose of creating the way of devotion for the highest pure soul? So I'm not quite sure why this is here. What's the point of this? I don't get this. Why is this here? Just saying something about how difficult it is, perhaps. Right, Sri Sutta. Even the self-satisfied sages who are free from all ties perform motiveless devotion to the white strider. This is referring to the Trivikram, another incarnation of Vishnu. Such is the nature of Hari. So even those who have gone beyond the gunas, it's the same thing. They've attained moksha, basically. They are still interested in motiveless, no gimme, free of all desire. Even though it's been said that there are, I hope you're not finding this repetitive, my friends. The text obviously it's going to cover a lot of things. Right after this is going to be the 64 processes of bhakti. So each one's going to be different. So bear with this and don't, just respect Rupa, and he's outlined it like this. So we're following in his footsteps. Not going to be rajasic and say, okay, I get it. Let's go to the next thing. That's rajas. We don't get anything because we're still in avidya. So what the hell have we got then? We read it and we think we understand it. Well, we really understand it when we actually absorb our minds 100% in it. Then we can say that we got something. All right. Even though it has been said here that the 5 kinds of mokshas are to be abandoned, such states as co-residence in the same world are not completely incompatible with devotion. This is an important. So out of the 5 kinds of moksha, he's saying 4 of them, residing in the same realm, having the same form, having the same power, and having the same wealth as Vishnu, they're not completely incompatible with devotion. In other words, you can accept them, the bhaktas can accept them, provided they can use that situation to serve Bhagavan. There's nothing wrong with having a form like Bhagavan, obviously nothing wrong with living in the same realm, nothing wrong with having the power, provided it's used in the service of Bhagavan. And, how would you get to that realm unless you were a bhakta in the first place? So there's a little bit puzzling, actually, but let's move on. Such states as co-residents in the same world are 2 types. Okay, he's going to explain this now. So the 4, remember the impersonal one is the 5th is rejected, right? You made that point. But the 4, which are personalist, so you're with Bhagavan God, the personal God in a personal spiritual Brahman realm, Saguna Brahman. So those 4 are of 2 types. One where the concern for personal happiness and supremacy is dominant. So you're in the kingdom of God, but there's some personal happiness and you want the power. Somehow you're using them for yourself. And 2, we're in the concern for love and service is dominant. That you may have these other 4 types of liberation, but all you're concerned about is love and service. The first of these is considered inappropriate. Bhaktas don't want it. So when they reject the other 4 kinds, this verse is informing us when the other 4 kinds of liberation are rejected, they're only rejected if what's rejected is using them for personal happiness and supremacy. Clearly, you're still a bhakta. You wouldn't have made it there. You're still, you've done incredible bhakti to make it to the kingdom of God. But there's still some, these verses suggest, there's still some kind of, sense of wanting to enjoy that situation for the self. So that's one kind. That's that's considered inappropriate. But the other kind, you might have one of the other 4. But if the concern, your mindset is love and service is dominant, then that's acceptable. I find that there's something a bit puzzling here, but I don't want to create ripples where it's not necessary. 57. However, the single-minded devotees who are immersed in the unique sweetness of supreme love for Hari never accept any of the 5 kinds. So you could say, well, that there's a contradiction. Not necessarily. This verse, I think, is saying really what's being rejected is any concern for personal happiness. Whereas I think this is an important verse. Whereas if those other types of liberation, if you use them for service, there's nothing wrong with them. The best among the single-minded devotees are those whose minds have been stolen by Govinda. Since even the favors of Lakshmi Shri, I don't know why he says Narayana, Shri is Lakshmi, are unable to steal their minds. Even everything the goddess of fortune can bestow, meaningless. Even though from a philosophical perspective, there is no difference in the essential nature of the Lord of Shri and Krishna. In other words, Vishnu and Krishna are the same from a philosophical point of view. They're the same being. But the disposition of rasa is such that it reveals the form of Krishna to be the most excellent. The relationship with Vishnu is kind of aura and majesty. Yeah, it's love. It's wonderful. Vishnu is just super awesome. But there's that majesty there. It's more formal. It's more like the kingdom of God in, like in the Abrahamic tradition with thrones and angels and cherubims and harps and, majesty. So he's saying, even though from a philosophical point of view, right, theologically, they're the same. But the rasa means love. Because of Yoga Maya, we're going to learn about Yoga Maya. Krishna hides his majesty. And that why? To allow closeness and love. So the disposition of rasa, we're going to learn a lot about rasa as we get into the third wave and the fourth wave. Rasa means the experience of love. It's such that it reveals the form of Krishna to be the most excellent. So you can love Krishna more intensely than Narayana, because Narayana, there's a little bit of, not a little bit, a lot of formality. And formality he's God. It's called Aishvarya. Ishvara has Aishvarya. Aishvarya means majesty, and the one who has Aishvarya, is Ishvara. So the very word and Narayana is very much Ishvara. Whereas Krishna hides his Ishvara nature, hides it under Yoga Maya, and he toddles around and falls on his knees. And why? To delight his devotees. So the rasa, the experience of that is much greater. So even though from philosophically there's no difference in the essential nature, they're both the same being. Of the Lord of Shri, right? Narayana is the husband, the consort of Shri. Shri is Lakshmi. And so Guruji Iyengar's lineage and Krishnamacharya's lineage, you've seen them wearing the sacred clay with the white and the red. That's the Shri Vaishnava tradition. And it all of the four Vaishnava lineages kind of are grounded in a form of Vishnu, well, in this case, Lakshmi. Okay, so you might want to make a note of that. Those of you that have Iyengar kind of backgrounds, that the lineage, the white sacred clay going upwards, that's the personalists, right? So let's just take a moment here. The sacred clay going like this, these are the personalists. The sacred clay going this way are the Advaitins and related traditions. Okay, so you see, if you look at posters and pictures, maybe not modern ones because they just mismatch everything, but if you look at anything that is more than 50 years old, this is the Advaita lineages, right? And you put the clay on 12 parts of your body, and the ones going up, that's the footprint of Vishnu on you put your head at the feet of Vishnu, and that represents the footprint of Vishnu. So these are the personalists that accept God as a distinct and eternal and a supreme being. Advaita, everything dissolves, including God and the world and bhakti and everything, and the ultimate goal is Satchidananda Brahman. How are we doing okay up there in the celestial realms? You're all up in the celestial realms up there. Okay, we'll keep going, and we'll see how we do. And at least we're going to finish the moksha verses. Let me just see how. It's me now. That's my rajas now. I hope you're all satisfied. We're going to respect. We're not going to jump over Rūpa. We're following in his footsteps. That's Rūpa Nuga. In this traditions, we're called Rūpa Nuga. We follow Rūpa. Rūpa's our primary theologian. Just like you have the Thomasians who follow Thomas Aquinas. So they're Thomasian, Thomas Institute, Thomasian. They're pretty cool. And they actually are all over college campuses. I mean, I'm really happy to see that, Thomasian Institute. And they follow Thomas Aquinas, who's probably the most brilliant Christian theologian. And I found out recently, it is said he had a vision of God. He was brilliant. And it's said he had a vision of God, and he never, he never spoke again. He never wrote anything. I don't know if he spoke again, but he never wrote anything. And people speculate, what was it? No, he claimed to have a vision. I forget the story. Maybe someone can go online. He claimed to have a vision. He never disclosed what it was. But from that moment onwards, he never wrote another thing. This is probably the most brilliant theologian in the Catholic tradition, Thomas Aquinas. Swami Premanandaji, what was Thomas Aquinas' vision? Go on Rishi Wiki.
Okay.
All right, we'll get back to that when you maybe at the end if someone finds something. Okay. So it is known from scripture that every human being is eligible for devotion. Everyone. Outcasts, right? That's, as I've said repeatedly, that's not the case with Vedanta study. Male Brahmins, Vedic ritualism, male Brahmins, everyone, bhakti. Devotion to Hari is exemplified by sage Vishishta when he explains to the king that all people are eligible for bathing. I think we've moved on now. Now we're on a section about how everybody is eligible. I think we're moving on from the trivialization of moksha. Everyone is eligible to do bhakti. So I think we're done with the moksha verses. Padma Purana. All people are certainly eligible here for devotion to Hari, O king. You don't have to be a Sanskrit scholar. You don't have to be a certain anything. Just have to have devotion for God. Animals, Gajendra, the elephant. We had a verse from him. And the Kashi Khanda, this must be a verse in the Ramayana. The Kashi Khanda. It means Varanasi. Kashi Khanda means a section of a text, and Kashi is the old name for Varanasi. Even today, the traditional, if you say Kashi, they like that because it's the old name. In his kingdom, even those born in the lowest caste bear the religious marks of the conch and discus after receiving Vaishnava initiation and are as qualified as those initiated into Vedic ritual, right? The Brahmins only, they do Vedic rituals, but the minute you become a Vaishnava, then he says, as qualified as, most texts say, they surpass by far the caste Brahmins. And these, and even today, some of the Babas, they brand themselves with the symbols of Vishnu. Some of them actually do it with a real brand, like a cattle brand, but with conch and discus. But mostly you can buy them in the market in Vrindavan, and you just put sacred clay on it and you stamp your body with those symbols. I think mostly, but I have seen people have actually did it with a red hot. They bear the religious marks of conch and discus. Moreover, fault arises in those eligible for devotion by neglecting to observe the various practices of devotion and not by failing to observe Vedic rituals. In other words, if you're a bhakta, you don't have to follow these Vedic rituals. If you err, it's because you neglect to observe the bhakti practices. No, in other words, this is being dismissive. Just like moksha is trivialized, well, Vedic ritual even more so is totally rejected. Actually, no atonement is necessary for such a person who inadvertently commits a forbidden act. So it's following on. Normally, if you do something, you break the codes of dharma, you have to commit prayaschita, atonement, prayaschita. So you have to fast, you have to go to bathe in the Ganga, whatever it might be. There are processes of atonement. Here it's saying, if you're a bhakta, no atonement is necessary, but it has to be inadvertently, not that you can just go out and be a nonsense. No, if you slip up once or twice or whatever, inadvertently, but maybe by accident, no atonement. You simply resituate your mind at the lotus feet of Bhagavan. That purifies everything. Wherever there are the feet of Bhagavan, then Bhagavan is present. And wherever there's Ishvara, there's purity. There's no contamination. This is the secret of the Vaishnava scriptures and is the opinion of the wise. And then back to the Bhagavatam. Adherence. Okay, so this section now, we've moved on from moksha, and here this section is basically saying everybody is eligible, even if you slip up. Bhakti itself is the process of atonement. You don't have to follow the old Vedic modes of atonement. such as fasting and bathing and stuff. You just get back on the path of bhakti, and that bhakti itself will purify anything that needs tweaking. Adherence to the particular actions for one who is eligible is said to be a virtue, and the reverse. This is following on from this. And the reverse is said to be a fault. This is the means of determining the two. I'm not sure what that's got to do with anything, but it's coming. I don't know what. Wait, no, is it coming after 11? I don't know what that's doing then. Adherence to the particular actions for which one is eligible. So in other words, if you do your dharma, right, your caste, right, everyone is eligible for certain actions, especially in a caste system, and that's a virtue. And if you do the opposite, it's a fault. This is the means of determining the two, determining virtue and fault. Virtue is you do your caste duties, and a fault is you do I have no idea what this is doing here. Oh, unless it's spilling over into here. Where is the misfortune? Okay, where is the vice? In other words, okay, so normally a virtue is when you do your dharma for which you're eligible, for which you have the gunas and the karma. You do your dharma, and if you do, and if you don't, that's a fault, right? And that's the difference. But where is the misfortune? So we have to read on. Where is the misfortune for even the immature devotee who has renounced his dharma? Right? Normally you do your dharma, that's good. You don't do your dharma, that's bad. But if you're a bhakta, even immature bhakta, you're just like we were. Well, still are. I remember thinking back 40 years ago, I'm like, oh my God, how embarrassing. Immature, we all thought we'd be Paramahamsas in 5 years. We're gonna be great bhaktas in 5 years. We're gonna be dancing with Krishna in Goloka. I don't think so. But anyway, immature. What is the misfortune for even the immature devotee who has renounced his own swadharma, right? This previous verse says that's a fault. But if you're a bhakta, even an immature bhakta, and is worshipping the lotus feet of Hari, even if he falls, well, there's no misfortune. It's not a fault. So this verse that I was puzzled, but it's connected with this. All right. So even if you are immature and you fall from the path, you do some nonsense. But if you're worshipping the lotus feet, what is the misfortune? Just pick yourself up again. And now, and the reverse, right? This verse was the reverse, right? Dharma is a virtue is dharma, and then the reverse is a fault. And now the reverse it, and what benefit has been attained by those who are not worshipping Hari? Because they're following their own dharma. They're working so hard on dharma, following the dharma shastras. There, what are they gained? They get the celestial realm, sure. They get good karma, sure. But what's the gain? They get their celestial realm, and then eventually they have to come back down. What have they ultimately gained? So read these two together. But notice they come from different sections. I mean, Rupa's weaved them together, but this one's from the 11th book, and this one is from the first. So Rupa has strung them together. Rupa, the author of our text. You remember the word Rupa, right? Svarupa Vastanam. It's the second verse of Patanjali. So you should be able to remember the name. The author of our text, the Bhaktirasāmṛtasindhu, is Rūpa Gosvāmi. Okay. The highest saint is he who renounces all his own duties. He gives up dharma. What does Krishna say? How does he end the Gita? 1866. Sarva dharman parityagya mamekam sharanam vraja. Check it out. 1866 Gita. Give up all dharmas and just surrender to me. I will protect you from all negative. Normally, you get bad karma if you do that. Krishna says, Aham tam sarva papebhyo mokshayisya. I'll free you from any bad karma. The highest saint is he who renounces all his own duties, like the gopis did. Remember the gopis? They left their husbands, even their babies. Imagine a mother leaving a little baby. Imagine a mother is nursing her baby, right? So that's how small the baby is. And she hears the flute of God, the call of God. She drops the baby and runs out the door. Could you imagine that? Imagine what the mission, well, we can imagine what the Europeans thought of that in the 19th century. Oh my God. Well, that's a story for another day. So The highest saint is he who renounces all his dharmas, even knowing that the rewards for following them is you go to a celestial realm, and the punishments for neglecting them were assigned by me. Krishna says in the Gita, I established the codes of dharma. What is it? Dharma samstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. 4th chapter. I come to establish dharma. So, but Krishna says, even though I established dharma, the highest saint is one who renounces them. Even though they come from me. And do you remember when the gopis go to be with Krishna in the forest? The first thing he does, he preaches dharma to them. He says, you're chaste women. You shouldn't be in the forest with a man that's not your husband. You know the Aryan codes of dharma. Go back to you've come, you've seen me, you've seen the forest. Go back home. And they go, we're not going anywhere. We're staying right here. And they completely disobey God. And that's why the gopis are considered to be the highest bhaktas, my friends, in the Krishna tradition. Because they disobey God right to his face. And not only do they disobey him, and then they criticize him. They say, hey, reciprocate with us, oh, you stubborn. They call him stubborn. I have a t-shirt upstairs. Reciprocate with us, oh stubborn one. And it's signed the gopis. Right, let's move on. I don't want to hear about all that. So, canto 11. He who renounces all duties and with his entire being takes Mukunda, Krishna, as his sole refuge, O king, is no longer a slave of or in debt. Normally, you're in debt to the gods, the sages, other living beings, your relatives, and your ancestors. These are the dharmas that everyone born in, this is mainstream, normal, non-yogic, non-bhakta Vedic culture. You're born with debts to the gods, the celestials. You've got to worship the celestials, the sages. You've got to honor the sages, the rishis, all living beings. You've got to feed everybody if you can, your relatives. But one who renounces all of that, all these dharmas, these are conventional dharmas, and it does what? And with his entire being takes Mukunda as his sole refuge, O king, pranidhana, samarpana. There's no longer a slave. He doesn't have to follow dharma, basically. And Krishna's, I just quoted it. Here it is, 1866. Sarva dharma parityagya mamekam sharanam braja aham tvam sarva papebhyo moksha yasyami ma shuchaha. Don't worry, you won't get bad karma. Give up all dharmas and come to me as your sole refuge. Give up. So this is our goal. To surrender, completely and utterly give up everything and just take shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda, Govinda. Then he quotes the Agastya Samhita. Just as a liberated person is not confined by injunctions and prohibitions, so this is the regular moksha, the regular jnani liberation. So even if someone has attained moksha, they're not bound by injunctions and prohibitions. As the great saints of the world traditions, we see that their activities are asocial and bizarre. They're not bound by any injunctions or prohibitions. So too, a worshipper of Rama, Agastya Samhita, is not bound by ordinary injunctions. 11th canto. Let me just see where this. I want to see where the. Okay, so we go to these 64 practices. Okay, wait, the practices are going to start very soon. Okay, 73. Oh, the 64 practices are right here. So when we have, let's do a few because we got 40 minutes. All right, now we're ready for the 64 practices. So so far today, let's keep our eye on the ball. We had a bunch of verses that really wants to sort of make it abundantly clear that moksha is not the goal for what the text considers real bhaktas. Real bhaktas are those who actually want God. They don't want God to give them anything, including moksha. That's real bhakti, and it's eternal, because that which is real is eternal, right? Sat. Sat means something that's always. That's why Brahman is Sat Chidananda. Sat is the state of ever ongoingness. It's the present active participle, like walking, talking. That's why it's translated as being. As long as you're walking, and as long as someone doesn't say, as long as something doesn't come to interfere, if you're in an ing state like talking or walking or eating, if you're in an ing state and it doesn't, and there's no, and it doesn't stop, then you're always, then it's another word, it's another way of saying you're eternally doing that thing. So we are always being, we're always ising. So sat is being. We're always in the ing state of existence, of being, beingness, existenceness. So where did I say all that? I can't remember. Right. The Supreme Lord Hari abides within the heart of his dear devotee, who has given up desire for all else and is worshipping his own feet, not his own, not that I mean Vishnu's feet. It's a bit, the grammar is a bit odd here, right? Because it sounds like it would be the devotees worshipping the devotees' feet. I don't think so. He's worshipping his own feet alone. If this devotee somehow commits an unlawful act, a dharma, Hari destroys all negative consequences. If you're a bhakta, and if you accidentally, it's not a license to go out and be a nonsense, because then you wouldn't be a real bhakta, would you? But if you're a real bhakta, and you pass some skaras creep up on you unexpectedly one day, and you have a little fall down, or you have a little, little detour, a little, you get hijacked for a moment or two, right? If this devotee somehow commits an adharmic act, Hari destroys all negative consequences. All right, now we move to the practices of Vaidhi Bhakti. Remember Vaidhi, the rules and regulations. And we had a question, by the way, and Matthew got followed up on it. Remember that the question was, that both Raganugas and Vaidhi Bhaktas can follow these processes. Now, the Vaidhi Bhaktas, they're following it by prescription. So I'm a Vaidhi Bhakta, right? So I try to follow these, not spontaneously, but because I'm following the path. But Raganuga is when you don't necessarily do all 64. You don't actually have to, you don't necessarily do all 64, but you might do some of them, like hearing about God, remembering God, which we're going to find here, but you do it from a place of spontaneity, from attraction to the practice, and not because it's prescribed. That's the difference. All right. So the practices of Vaidhi Bhakti have already been defined in the Hari Bhakti Vilasa. This is another one of the 6 Goswāmis. Caitanya had 6 Goswāmis that are famous in the tradition. They are the founding fathers, just like Catholicism has the early church fathers, Origen, Tertullian, and others. So these are the founding fathers of the disciples of Caitanya. Caitanya only read 8 verses, and remind me at the end of the course to read those 8 verses with you. He only actually himself penned, but he instructed his disciples, and they just wrote just masses of literature, voluminous quantities of literature. So Rūpa is one of the 6 Gosvāmi, but the other one is Rūpa Sanatan. So the Hari Bhakti Vilas is written by, I'm 65, and it's interesting because I'm finding my memory. Remember what Patanjali says? What is memory? When asampramoshaha, when it doesn't slip away, an object that you've experienced doesn't slip away, that's memory. But when your memory starts fading, it does slip away. So I know the 6 Goswamis inside out, but right now the name of the one it'll come to me in a minute. Hari Bhakti Vilas was written by Gopal Bhatta Gosvāmi, one of the 6 Goswamis. And if you go to Vrindavan, there are 6 major temples, each one associated with one of the Goswamis. So each of them got kings and stuff to sponsor, and they wanted to establish a holy place. They wanted to resurrect, Krishna Bhakti. They had to become it had always been there, but they wanted to create a holy place where Krishna had actually spent his leelas before leaving and going out and being, Mathura Krishna and Dwarka Krishna and the Mahabharata war and all of that. So Gopal Bhatta is the author of the Hari Bhakti Vilas, and that's kind of a book more about regulations and pujas. It's more about, it's Vedic Bhakti. So there's a lot more than 64 is what he's saying. The practices of Vedic Bhakti have already been defined, right, by his contemporary godbrother and fellow disciple of Chaitanya in the Hari Bhakti Vilas. But the more important ones will be described here to the best of my knowledge. So he says 64. Here is the characteristic of a practice. So what is a practice? Before he gives us the 64 practices, well, what is the characteristic of a practice? The wise have said that a single practice of devotion is either a distinct, isolated act or one that is a part of a combination of acts. So you can either do one, actually, elsewhere it says even just one of these processes can give you bhakti. So you can just focus on one, like, for example, japa or kirtan. There are great babas who just chant kirtan to this day in Vrindavan. They do nothing else than chant kirtan. And they just do one, because the idea is to absorb the mind in Bhagavan. So you don't need to do all 64. So you can just do one. Or, so the wise have said that a single practice of bhakti is, out of the 64 that's coming up, is either a distinct isolated act, or it can be in a combination. So you could be associating with bhaktas, that's one. And you could be sharing stories of Krishna, that's two, and you can be combining those together. All right, so that's the point. Now, he's going to list the 64, and then the rest of the, and then there's going to be a whole bunch of of verses. Remember, he has to substantiate each of those from a verse from the sacred text. So he lists them. You can't just make stuff up. You can't just say, okay, here's 64 practices of bhakti. You have to show how the 64 practices are embedded in the sacred text, right? The Smriti. This is why we're reading the Yoga Sutras. I've mentioned this before. I mentioned it again because if you're Krishna Chai, you can't just make up asanas and say this is Vedic. You have to show where is it Vedic? Where it's not in the Upanishads. Where are the asanas in the Upanishads? Where are the asanas in the Gita? Where are the asanas in the Mahabharata? Where are the asanas in any of the other sutras? Where are the asanas in the Puranas? And mentioned here and there. Where are all these, all these dozens and dozens and hundreds of poses? So you have to sort of, if you're a traditional, like Krishnamacharya most definitely and absolutely was, you have to come up with, okay, well, the Yoga Sutras has 3 verses and you might pluck a couple of, the whole story about, remember that whole story, or was that Patabi Joyce? Went up to the Krishnamacharya, got a text from, you got a text from someone in the Himalayas and he brought it back and Patabi Joyce said he saw it and it was in the Calcutta library. And then someone went to look for it and then, it got eaten by ants. So you might make up, let's call it a pious fiction. But why? Because you have to have textual support. You can't make stuff up. I don't mean any disrespect there. Krishnamacharya is an acharya. And acharyas can do stuff like that. And they do. They can do stuff like that because they do it for a higher purpose. Even Krishna says in the Gita, great men don't, it sounds a bit treacherous, I know. I don't want to get back, I don't want to get into this. All right. So let's 64 practices. Okay, now we're going to we got half an hour. Maybe we'll just read the list really quickly and then go back and start. And then next week we'll read them again, but they'll be substantiated by verses. 64. 1. Notice the first, surrender to the feet of the Guru. I have very mixed feelings about this, my friends. I've seen too many scandals and too many innocent, or maybe no one's innocent. Maybe we look innocent, but we're all actually subject to our karma from past lives that we don't see. But be careful with this one. Be careful with this, except it's a number 1 here. But we'll talk about it at some point. Let's read the list, okay? Don't go running. Here's this is the position after thinking about this for decades. Because for me, it's a conflict between what the scripture says and what I perceive with my eyes in 45 years of being in this game, which is just people with big egos collecting disciples, maybe charismatic and maybe sincere, but trapped in their egos and feeding on the adulation of their disciples. And then eventually there's a fall down. And so here's what and for years I thought, how do I reconcile what the scriptures say with what I see, and I keep seeing everywhere, and then I think, oh, well, maybe it's an exception here, and then some scandal erupts there, maybe over there. So here's what I say now: don't go running around looking for a guru. Surrender to Ishvara and let Ishvara take care of that. If you're going to meet somebody who is going to inspire you, first of all, the real guru is a servant. Is a servant, not some big person with a big ego, and a real guru lives very, very minimalistically, very renounced. And Krishna, read the end of chapter 2. Arjuna says, what is the stitadhi? Who is the sage? Who is it? And there's a 20-verse answer, and we're doing it in Sanskrit class right now. Every verse, free of desire, free of desire, free of desire, free of desire, free of, and synonyms. So don't go running around looking for a guru, because the guru takes you to Ishvara. If you surrender to Ishvara, Ishvara will take care of all your needs and how to get to him or her, if it's Bhagavati. And if that means meeting someone, you'll meet someone. But don't you go running around, because then you're operating on your ego and your afflicted mind, and you're going to end up getting ripped off and cheated. If you are using your navigating system, remember, it's Klishta. It's Klishta right now. So you're going to end up with a Klishta guru. So don't do that. What does Patanjali says? He says, Ishvara is the guru. He's the guru of the ancients. So surrender to Ishvara. Say, Ishvara, I'm on the path. I want to approach you. I want to do this bhakti. The text says I need a guru. I'm leaving it up to you. Otherwise, I start chitta-vritting about it and getting all mental. And then I go running around, and then I meet someone's a little bit charismatic, maybe he speaks nicely. And then my guru. And then I've seen so many sincere practitioners give the prime of their life only to find that their guru was, engaging in behavior even non-yogis would be ashamed of. So please, take it from me. This one thing. You let Ishvara take care of that. We can't change what the text say. Can't say, we're in a post-guru, phase of whatever, 21st century. Someone wrote to me the other day, are we in the post-guru? Just surrender to Ishvara, and then, if you find someone that inspires you and is completely and utterly dedicated and free of desire and all of that, then let Ishvara then inspire your mind. Don't use your mind, because your mind is klishta, and you will end up with a klishta so-called guru. All right, I hope that's clear enough. Okay, so charisma's got nothing to do with it, my friends. Adolf Hitler was charismatic. Donald Trump is charismatic. Got nothing to do with it. The bhakta is somebody who is humble and serving 24 with every 24 hours. No personal anything. Everything is Bhagavan, Bhagavan, Bhagavan. If you meet someone like that, you'll automatically want to associate with a person like that. You don't have to think guru, guru, guru. You just, if you're a real bhakta and you really seek that, you're automatically going to be attracted by the company of those who exhibit those qualities. It's just natural. Don't go running around looking for gurus to get cheated. And allow me a few more sentences. And it's not like all gurus are bogus. Many are sincere, but they take up this absolutist position, and that's just going to turn your head. And there's no critical feedback, because they're surrounded by disciples who are all Guruji, 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 so they're not getting any critical feedback. And it's going to go to your head. If you're not pure, then, if you may be sincere. I'm not saying they're all rip-off artists. But then they're not there. Then they start, and they're getting all this adulation. That's going to turn anybody's head who's not pure. So don't do it. Just surrender to Ishvara, and that's it. Say, Ishvara, this is not my problem, it's your problem. If I need a guru, you take care of it. Finished. Leave it alone. I've seen too many broken hearts, and then people leave the spiritual path. 64. So number one is, there it is, number one. We can't change the texts. Patanjali says Ishvara is the guru, and I think somewhere in the Gita, Krishna says, I am the guru. So take that as the guru, and then let Ishvara make any arrangements. Just don't even think about it anymore. 2, initiation, right? So that's obviously follows from the guru. You take initiation and instruction. And there's different kinds of gurus, by the way. There's the one who just teaches, and that we all are that. That's called shiksha guru. We're all a bit of that. If we teach, we're all, even to our kids, we're shiksha gurus. But the diksha is the one who initiates you into the lineage. And then that's really your kind of formal lineage guru. That's the one I'm saying, but guru in the sort of lower level sense of just a teacher will receive instruction. That's perfectly okay. You can seek instruction. But diksha guru, basically you surrender your whole life to that guru. So you got to be very, very, very careful. Serving the guru with trust. See, so this is the first. All the first 3 are related to the guru. This is a little bit less, following the path of the saints. That's less kind of intensely committed. In other words, you're not giving your whole life to somebody. Here you're just hanging. This is sadhu sangha, associating with the saints. Right. 5, inquiry into the true nature of things. Just kind of jñāna. This is just regular jñāna. Renouncing ordinary pleasures for the sake of Krishna. So it's vairagya, but what makes it bhakti then? Because Patanjali talks about vairagya. What's nirodha? Vairagya and abhyasa vairagya. So that's a sine qua non, meaning that all yoga traditions, that's central to all of them. But what makes bhakti vairagya different? You do it for the sake of Krishna. You're doing it as an offering to Krishna. My dear Lord Krishna, everything is grace. All I can do is just try to show you how sincere I am by following the regular yamas and niyamas and all of the rest of it. I know I'm not going to get bhakti that way, but what else can I do? I'm not just going to sit at home and do nothing. So I'm going to do all of this in the hope that you will. The bhakta always understands that bhakti is a gift of God, my friends. You can't get it. Like you can get Patanjalian. You can get jñāna. And you can get your Atman by your own ego and willpower and virtuosity, but not bhakti. It's a gift. So how do you get the gift? You somehow or other have to hope you can attract the attention of Bhagavan. So you do everything that all the yogis do, but you're doing it for Krishna. Right, living in the sacred places such as Dwarka or near sacred rivers such as the Ganga, so that, but why? Because those places are reminiscent of some great beings. Most Dwarka is where Krishna, when he left Vrindavan, he went to Dwarka. Sacred rivers. So and also sadhus congregate there. So if you go to the sacred places, you're going to meet people like you, right? It's just like if you want to go skiing, so you go to some ski resort and you're going to meet other skiers or anything. So, isn't it the Super Bowl today or tomorrow? So, if you're a football fanatic, you go to the Super Bowl, or you go to, everyone's watching it on telly and it's a sangha. So, well, if you're a bhakta, what do? You go to the places where bhaktas hang out. So, like Dwarka. So that's number 7. We'll just read the list and then we'll stop. Acceptance of only what is necessary in ordinary life. That's a parigraha. But again, for Krishna. Honoring the festival days of Hari, right? The days like Janmastami, the birth of Krishna, honoring them in order to, please Bhagavan. Again, you please him, right? I mean, Bhagavan is a person. If it's your birthday and your friends forget, well, okay, you might be detached, but a little part of you is going to not be thrilled about it. So honoring the festival days of Hari. Respect for holy trees, such as, this is the Ashvata. I have no idea what the people figures, but whatever. I don't even know what this is doing here. This sounds like an old Vedic kind of Dharma thing, but there it is. Right. These 10 practices should be primary in the beginning. I have no idea what number 10 is doing that. These 10 practices should be primary in the beginning. So there's the most important. And notice how the guru was in 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Despite my warnings, we cannot change the fact that 1, surrender at the feet of the guru, 2, initiation and instruction regarding Krishna, and 3, serving the guru with trust. And then around the guru, there'll be others in the ashram or in that place, the holy place, that they're the saints, maybe other disciples of the guru or just sort of the community. It's called sadhu sangha. And all right, now moving on. 11, keeping far away from those people who have turned away from the Lord. Right, you want to nourish your bhakti. So there are those who will mock. Theism is not particularly hip right now, by the way. Like everybody, we're all running away from our Abrahamic theisms. Well, maybe not all of us, but sort of in kind of new age, kind of, pop spirituality, theism is kind of not particularly in right now, just sort of cultural superficiality. But anyway, keeping away from people who have turned away, and most pop spirituality is well-intentioned, but there are those who actually averse, especially in academia. They're averse, they mock, they if you take the text seriously, they will just think you're ridiculous and pre-modern and mythologically minded and so forth. So you obviously that's not going to nurture your bhakti. And some of these people are powerful intellectuals. They can easily sway your mind if you're, especially in the beginning, if you're in the beginning part. So anyway, take it or leave it. That's 11. Avoiding the attendance of numerous disciples. This you shouldn't have many disciples and have them serve you. So this is what I was talking about. So this is back to the guru again. Avoiding the attendance of numerous disciples. If you're a teacher or if you're a kind of, don't want people serving you and following you and adulating you, because it's gonna turn your mind until you actually get to these high state. Look, all these gurus, all the scandals, the gurus that came in the 60s, I'm not going to name any, but go online, just type in 60s guru scandal. It's not that they weren't sincere. They were sincere. If you read their early stories, some of them before they came to them, they were amazing yogis, incredible. But they come to the West, and then, or even in India, you don't have to come to the West. Scandals abound in India. And then you start collecting a few disciples, and then next thing, and they're all honoring you and adoring you, and Guruji, it's going to go to your head. And sooner or later, right, you have that pride, and then all the sex desires, because usually what happens, and all your old ragas are gonna, because ragas don't go anywhere. You just cover them with yogic samskaras and bhakti samskaras, and that's all well and good. They don't actually disappear. They lose their power and so forth, and jnana burns them, but they're still memories. And once you start, and that's why Patanjali says, in abhyasa, dirghakala, nerantarya, no interruption in practice. Because you start interrupting and thinking, I'm a big guru now, I don't need to do my practice, only a matter of time. And then you start having, then scandal, let's just put it that way. So avoiding the attendance of numerous disciples. Don't accept service unless you can really channel that service directly to Krishna. And then you can guide your students to serve Krishna, not you personally. My guru was like, he was in his 90s and living in a funky medieval Goshala. And I remember one of my beautiful memories, and old man, and he would every day he would feed by hand the cows gulab jamun. He would make gulab jamun. He would have huge woks of gulab jamun made for his beloved cows. Then he would carry them in these old funky buckets, and he could barely walk. And one time I went up to him. I said, Guruji, hamko मैं तो लेता हूँ. Let me carry the buckets. He goes, nah. He wouldn't let me carry the bucket. Nah. Wouldn't accept any personal service. And if, he would say, go clean the Goshala, go, he would tell us to go serve, but not him. Go clean the cows, go sweep up the poop, go, and he would direct us to do service. And we were ecstatic. There was nothing, it was just bliss following following his instructions because he was so pure, and there was no question that there was any ego or personal, gain or anything. He couldn't tolerate it. If you gave him, normally, we would come from the West and we, would support the Goshala. And normally you give some charity and, expect a little pat on the head, a little thank you, a little something, right? I mean, kind of ego wants to, maybe it was a bit of a sacrifice. You give him a donation, he wouldn't look you in the face. He would just take it, stick it under his funky little Baba mat, look away. Wouldn't even give you 10 seconds of ego pride, just like that. And we loved him for it, because we recognize he's not going to flatter us. He's not going to, it's just everything is this purity, pure. So there's a little story from my side. Okay. But go onto my website, actually, if you want to. There's a little video clip. It's Hindi, but you'll get a sense of a Baba. What is a Vrindavan Baba? He was very old in the video, and so he's just on a cot in the Goshala, which is a shala for go. Go is cow. Shala is a kind of room. Shala is a big place. It kind of goes back to a Vedic shala, which is where the Vedic fire sacrifices to. Well, you know the word. You have yoga shalas. What have I talked about? You know what it means. Right, where are we? Okay, people with tons of disciples, beware. That's not the kind of guru you probably want. Right, refraining from zealous involvement in grand projects. Oh, I'm going to build a big temple. Oh, you just become attached to materiality, my friends. There are some exceptions, fine. But, yeah, well, look here, refrain from zealous involvement in grand projects, even in the name of God. All these big temples, they just become political. People become attracted to the power and they want to be the president or the manager. And then there's resources and collection and donations. And there are a few exceptions. You can't generalize, but for the most part, it's going to get political really quickly. 14, giving up excessive attachment to books. We don't need all this jñāna. Identify your canonical text and go for that. For me, it's the Bhagavatam. That's it. Everything else I do is to teach, and actually, what I do is I try to connect people to the Bhagavatam. You may have noticed I always slip in a Krishna story. I've always, that's what can I tell you? That's what my teachers told me to do. So that's what I do, but non-dogmatically, not fanatically, but at the bottom of underneath it all, that's who I am. Where are we? So not too much attachment, books, artistic performance, lecturing, and argumentation, all this debate, Vedanta, back and forth, just leave it alone in bhakti. 15, avoiding ungenerous behavior, this sort of mundane meaning that, just conventional righteousness. So don't be, be generous. Don't be overwhelmed by emotions as ordinary sorrow. Don't get overwhelmed by the mind. So this is some of these are generic. So which is why you don't have to do all 64. Show no disrespect for other gods. Bhaktas never worship other gods. They have full faith in Bhagavan, but that doesn't mean you disrespect them. You do your namaha. But you don't worship other gods, because other gods, people worship the gods for material things. We're back to our gimme. So, but that doesn't mean you disrespect them. They're great, powerful, select beings. Refraining from coercing or causing distress to other beings, right? Giving diligent, what do you want me to say about that? It's fairly straightforward. Giving diligent attention to avoid committing an offense in service and chanting the name. So try not to be offensive when you're doing service and chanting the name. And there are actually 10 offenses against the chanting of Hare Krishna mantra, of the mantra, which I'm not particularly fond of those 10. I think they're a little bit dogmatic, but anyway. But so one shouldn't be, the offenses are, one should honor the name. Even Patanjali says, right? You do tajapa tadartha bhavanam. You do japa, but tadartha bhavanam, be aware of what it means. So most commentators take that, you do it respectfully. It is Bhagavan in the form of sound. So something like that, perhaps. Avoid committing an offense in service and chanting the holy name. So we'll see what, remember, we're reading the list now, and then next time we meet, Rūpa will give us verses to explain all of this. So for now, let's just, because we've only got 10 minutes, not tolerating any hostility or abuse towards Krishna or his devotees. Always stand up for the bhaktas. You know, bhakta may be humble and tolerant and all of that, but not when it comes to Krishna and his devotees. Always protect the devotees. This is what it's saying here. These 10 practices are performed as things to be avoided. So in other words, these are avoiding things, right? Avoid ungenerous behavior. Avoid being overwhelmed by sorrow. Avoid disrespecting God. So these are avoidance. Those 10 are avoidance. Although all 20 of these practices are doorways of entering the path of devotion, the areas, again, the first 3, beginning with surrender at the feet of a guru, are said to be the most important. And I can't help it. I can't help my experience. I can't help what I've seen in 45 years. And I can't deny what he just said. But let's go back to the 3 again. But I can't deny my pratyaksha pramana, my experience with my own eyes. Surrender at the feet of the guru, initiation and instruction regarding Krishna, serving the guru with trust. Sometimes people say to me, why don't you become a guru? I go, never. Not in this lifetime, mate. Just set a good example and that's good enough. All right. Now, 21, wearing the marks of a Vaishnava, that's the sacred clay I told you about, and the brandish, branding the body, not with you're not supposed to do it with, I mean, maybe some do it with fire, but no, it's supposed to be with sacred clay. Wearing the letters of Hari's name, so you can write the letters of Hari's name on your body. Wearing flower garlands worn by Krishna, this is prasad. If you go to the temple and you get a nice garland from the deity, and then you consider that you've been blessed. So you're very happy. And you'll see if you go to an Indian temple, where the pujari will take the garlands off, and all the Indians will crowd in a mass, and 1 or 2 of them will get a garland, and they will feel blessed. They'll take it home. They'll put it, they'll keep it. It'll go dry, and they'll never throw it away. No, so that's considered prasadam. Dancing before him, for the deities. This is namaha, prostrate. You go in a temple and you bow down. Rising respectfully from a seat, right? Obviously, there's something more than this. Is that to the guru, to the deity? We'll see. We're just reading them now, but here, what exactly does that mean? We'll find out in a minute, next week. Following politely after a superior. If there's a superior, you walk behind the superior person, meaning an elderly bhakta, or a someone that's superior knowledge, or superior in the sense that any society has that, right? We have our role models, we have even professors perhaps, but so just being respectful, and the Vedic way of being respectful is you walk behind that person, not in front of them, or even alongside them, but slightly behind. Visiting temples, have darshan. Circumambulating them, going round and round. Worshipping in temples. Assistance in temples, clean, the temples need, help with distributing food and cleaning and collecting funds as well, by all means. Chanting, this is your kirtan, or maybe this is kirtan, congregational praise, and japa is 34, silent chanting. Praying, but not gimme, no gimme praying. Reciting hymns of praise, nice Vedic hymns, that's all very well and good. Notice you don't have to do all of these. What you really have to do is never forget Krishna. These are just little ways of helping with that. And notice that the Raganuga doesn't need to follow any of this, but the Raganuga may follow those, some spontaneously, like chanting, always singing about God, because the mind is always thinking of God, and the mind becomes joyful, and song is an expression of spontaneous joy. So Raganuga might follow some, but from a spontaneous point of view, you and I, we're doing it. We might like kirtan. We might, a little bit spontaneity is there. It's not totally and utterly forced drudgery, but we're on the path of Vedi. Okay, where are we? Eating food that has been offered to the deity, that's prasadam, and perhaps I'll show you my temple room at some point upstairs. I just repainted it. But whatever you cook, if you're a bhakta, you offer it to your deity before you eat it. So here you cook and you offer it. Drinking water used to wash the deity's feet. This is your puja. Part of the puja is you wash the deity and then you drink that. That's blessed water. Smelling the sweet fragrance of the incense and flowers. So this is all puja stuff. So you offer it and then you accept it back for you. You can enjoy it then. It's offered first to the deity. Enjoy it means you can, this prasadam from God. You can enjoy it because it's been touched by God and experienced by God. In that sense, you can enjoy it. Touching the divine image, right? You do puja, you wash the deity and so forth. And looking, this is darshan. Darshan. You've heard the word darshan. You go to the temple and you look at the divine image. Now we've got 20 more to go. We'll just whiz through them, and then we have a kirtan. Witnessing festivals and the waving of a lamp before I don't like this word image, but the deity in worship. So you go to the festivals, you go to the temple when it's when it's some event, especially if it's your Ishta Devata. This is a Krishna tradition, but the same holds true for Devi, Shiva, and anybody. And then you wave lamps, you offer lamps to the deity. Listening to stories of the Lord. I'm surprised this is all the way down here, because this is the very. I don't know what. Well, let's wait. Let's wait and see what he says about that. This is the primary practice. Perceiving the grace of the Lord, seeing everything as the blessing of God. Remembering the Lord. This is the. I don't know why this is number 45. This is the goal of it all. The goal of it is to remember God all the time. Smaranam. Meditating on the Lord. Why are these tucked away down here? Well, there must be an explanation. We'll wait and see what the explanation is. Servitude towards the Lord, friendship. These are the bhavas. The member Hanuman is the servant bhav. Bhav means the type of love and type of relationship you have as a servant, as a friend, as a mother. These are the bhavs. Friendship, this is Sakya bhav. Fully entrusting oneself to the Lord, complete nut of faith, offering things dear to oneself. In other words, you may ask yourself, what do I offer God? Well, my guru would always say, offer what you like, because then you're offering what you consider to be the best. The idea is to offer the best. So how do you know what the best is? Well, certain things your deity likes. So you know that from the text, and and then so you make sure you offer those things. But then what else? Well, things you like, you offer to anything that you like, then you offer it first to your deity. Nice flowers, nice fruits, whatever you like. So here, offering things dear to oneself, making all efforts for his benefit. Okay, we'll read little verses that illustrate all of these next week. Surrendering completely, this is Samarpana. Again, I think this should be higher on the list. Serving those associated with him. This is something I personally take very seriously. Serving other bhaktas, always serving other bhaktas, serving other bhaktas. Both because bhaktas are great beings and also because it pleases Bhagavan. Right, his sacred tulsi plant. Did he forget to put number? What's this got? Where is this? Oh, I see. Serving those things associated with him, such as his sacred tulsi plant. So we worship tulsi. I had several in my kitchen. They all died, which is rather discomforting. I guess it was too cold. They're very temperamental, and they really are the hot weather plants. They grow great in Hawaii, the tulsi plant. Right, scriptures. I guess this is Svadhyaya. What is going on here? Why is he just giving these truncated things? I don't know. Mathura, and there's something wrong with, I think something's gone wrong with the text here. So verse 88, 89, 90. All right. Well, anyway, he's going to talk about each one. So we'll wait. Like Patanjali gives a list, right? That there are 5 yamas, and then he talks about, he lists them, right? Pratyaksha, right? And what does he say? He says, pramana, viparyaya, right? Viparyaya, and list, right? And smriti and nidra, and then he goes through them one by one. So that's what Rupa's doing here. Same with the kleshas. So he's giving the list, and then you go through them one by one next week. So respect for the month of Kartika, the 3 months of the rainy season. Was it 4? And that's the one time that wandering sages and saints can reside in a holy place. for 4 months. And then Vaishnavas do vows, vratas. Do we miss something? Vaishnavas, he doesn't even say what this is. So we'll have to wait and see. Can everybody mute themselves, please? Someone's unmuted.
Excuse me, Professor.
Yeah.
I think the reason he's got these one word things here is because these are the things associated with Krishna. It's examples of number 53.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well. Yeah.
But then it goes to 54.
No, but he's saying serving those associated with him, such as the tulsi plant, the scriptures, Mathura and Vaishnava.
So there's a colon there which governs this whole list. Yes. Thank you. All right, so let's read it that way. Serving those things associated with him, such as, and Bhakti item number 53, Tulsi, such as process number 54, the scriptures, such as serving Mathura, and serving Vaishnavas. Thank you so much. I was like, what's going on? Serving and anything else? Yeah, observing great festivals with the saints using whatever materials one can provide. If you have wealth, then use it for the celebrating beautiful festivals, feed everybody, and so forth. 58, respect for that we just mentioned. Kartika, the 4 months, you do a vow, you fast, maybe give up something for 4 months. And bhaktas do that. Celebrate the day of Krishna's birth, Janmashtami. Special love for serving the feet of the divine image, 60. Enjoying the meanings of the Bhagavata Purana with sensitive people. That's what we're doing now, my friends. This text is a kind of a commentary on the Bhagavata. Association with the highest affectionate saints who are of a similar temperament as oneself. This is very important in bhakti. Associate with other bhaktas. They may not be, they may not have made it all the way. They're on the path, but they're wonderful people. Many of them. Some, well, like any tradition, you meet your fanatics and your dogmatists and so forth. But some wonderful, the highest affectionate saints. That's what we should seek for. Those who have this love, we want to associate with them. See how they behave. See how they talk. Associate with them. So that it rubs off on us, so that we can imitate them. 63, singing the names of the Lord. There's kirtan. I thought we had it already, but must have been some difference. And 64, living in Mathura, which is the big town where Krishna was born, right next to Vrindavan. Okay, we'll just finish this up, and down here he's going to start illustrating them with verses. But first, although the last 5 practices were mentioned before, they were mentioned before. See, singing the names. Although the last 5 were mentioned before, they are repeated here to indicate their superiority over all others. So the first 5 were important, and now he's saying the last 5 are important. Well, the last 5, celebrating the day of Krishna's birth, enjoying the meanings of the Bhagavad Purana, associating with saints, singing the names of Sankirtan, Kirtan, and living in the holy place, Mathura. These then are the forms of worship for the body, senses, and mind. So some of them are body practices, some are senses, some are mind. These 64 practices can be performed separately. You can just do one, just sit under a tree like the Bubbas do and do japa, or collective. Oh, I see. No, you can do them alone or you can do them collectively. Now, illustrations of these will now be cited from the words of the sages. We end here, right? He's just made this list, and you can't just make stuff up. You've got to illustrate it. So now he's being a Vedantin, he's being an orthodox Vedika, sort of, this is the Vedika method. You've got to substantiate any claim you make from the Shastras. So now illustrations of these will now be cited from the words of the sages, from the sacred texts, from the Puranas. And that's where we end for today. So now we know what the 64 items are of bhakti, and we know what to expect now. Next time we meet, he'll give us illustrations, and then we'll be done with the second wave, and then we have the third wave, which is bhava, which is that when you're actually starting to develop that affection, and then the final wave where you become ecstatically. We become a lover of God. In other words, then it's not Vaidhi anymore. You've actually made it. Okay.
Acharya Ji, would you like this quick story of St. Thomas Aquinas?
Yes. The vision of God, yeah.
Yeah, so 1270.
They don't know what it is. Go ahead.
1273, he seemed to be levitating in prayer with tears before an icon of the crucified Christ. And Christ said to Thomas, "You have written well of me, Thomas. What reward would you have for your labor?" Thomas responded, "Nothing but you, Lord." Then, on December the 6th, 1273, while celebrating the Mass of St. Nicholas, Thomas went into ecstasy. Thomas's friend and secretary, Reginald, later asks him, "Master, will you not return to your work?" Thomas Aquinas replies, "I can write no more. All that I have written seems like straw." Interesting use of the word, because you have highlighted that in this text, that seems like straw. All that I've written seems like straw. So that's
a fantastic. I love it. Sorry, I got a little distracted by the chat. So what was it that he saw? He saw Christ, did he?
He saw Christ. Yeah, he seemed to be levitating in prayer with tears before an icon of the crucified Christ. And then he asked, and then Jesus spoke to him and said, what reward would you have for your labor? And nothing but you, Lord.
You see the overlap here. First of all, there's the city of levitation. Then there's the deity. He's worshiping a deity in his own way, the crucified Christ. And then he has a darshan, and then he rejects everything. So it's utter. When you get to that level, there's utter overlap in the tradition.
And it seems, when you pointed out about how moksha seems like straw to the bhakta, he's saying the same thing. He says, like, he's asked, "Why will you not write anymore?" Because all these years he's been writing and writing and writing. All that I've written seems like straw after this experience. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, I better throw my books away then. All right. No more books, my friends. I'm going to follow in the footsteps of Thomas Aquinas now. Wonderful. Cece, are you there? Cecilia.
I saw her.
I'm here.
Okay, is it all right if we take a few minutes question and answer?
Sure. Yes.
Okay.
Of course.
Shiva. We were very unfair to you last time, so please, spotlight for everybody. Oops, don't know how to do that. Namaskar.
Namaskar.
Namo Shivaya.
Namaskar. Har Har Mahadev. Professor Edwin, I'm going to pivot a little bit. I was playing catch up because I missed the first class, so I was trying to squeeze in. I'm still absorbing a lot of it. But a few very simple questions I have tonight. I'll circle back to the other one some other time.
Yeah.
One is proselytizing a thing in bhakti.
Yeah.
I think I've encountered it.
It's not something that, proselytizing, you don't find that. In the sense of converting people. You might a little bit more sometimes in the Krishna tradition, but I think the idea is just to share and teach, but not to proselytize. And that whole, like the Hare Krishnas that were, really in the streets in the 60s and 70s. I was a Hare Krishna first. I lived in a Hare Krishna ashram for 7 years, and I look back on that as do many of us from that earlier period, and we just like, oh my God, we're so ashamed of that, but that came from Bhaktivedanta's guru, who was in the 1900s, and the Christian missionaries were all over Calcutta and denigrating the practices of the Hindus. So Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati basically copied the missionary method, and he established mats, and he established printing presses, and he had his brahmacharis go out in the streets and distribute books. And the Hare Krishnas came out of that mindset, which was initially, a Bengali phenomenon that was meant to counteract the proselytizing. That whole idea of proselytization was picked up from the Christian missionaries, and then it was it seeped into Bhaktivedanta's guru's way of thinking in order to preserve, Hinduism, and so that came from that. And then the Hare Krishnas, especially in the early days, were a little, I think, too zealous and basically turned everybody off. So I think proselytization is counterproductive, but sages do teach. I mean, otherwise we wouldn't be reading these texts. So they teach and they write things, and if they're approached, I think that's the principle, that you're approached and that you're requested for teaching, then it's teaching, you're not preaching. It's none of your business. It's none of your business. It's not not you, sorry, Shiva. It's not of our business. It's between the person and Bhagavan, whatever seed is planted in their heart. Our business is simply to present the material and let people do what they will with it. So proselytizing, when you're really actually trying to actively convert, counterproductive, and especially in our day and age.
Right. Thank you, teacher. You've actually shed some light on helping me understand, because I'm in a tantric group and they started in Bengal and they're very strong on proselytization, which is something that bothers me. So now I have some perspective where that might be coming from. Yeah, and I'm wondering,
and if I could just say, you can belong to a community, and there may be members of that community that are zealots and that you can't really relate to. So just offer them namaha from a distance, and make friends with those that are, pure-hearted and really love Shiva, and not, because a lot of proselytization is ego. Really, a lot of it is actually you're so insecure about the choice you made. And one way of trying to strengthen your remove that insecurity is by convincing others, because then it makes you feel you made the right choice. So a lot of it is just coming from a pure place of asmita. What is this proselytization? It's between people and Bhagavan. What you can do is, and a beautiful thing to do, is just to share the teachings as a student with other students. And then, okay, if you're interested, let's sit, and study these texts. But not proselytizing. But anyway, go ahead.
That's it for tonight. I'll move on so others have a chance to ask questions. I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Yeah. Om Namo Shivaya. Yeah. Yeah, I probably have a few more things to say about that, but let's save that for another day. Okay. Let's have Adhesh Maharaj, boliye.
Yes, Professor. Thank you for this for the sadhana today. But my question was from 69 that we picked on the second wave, which is, give up all your duties and come to me as your sole refuge. I will free you from all sins. But the bigger theme of the Bhagavad Gita is sort of performance of duty and doing your duty because it needs to be done. So the principle of karma yoga. But here when Bhagavan says, take me as your sole refuge, I will free you of all sins. In what context is one to interpret?
It's very interesting, because you're absolutely right. So 18 chapters is do your dharma, do your dharma, do your dharma, do your dharma. Offer it to me in bhakti, or give up the attachment, the fruits. And then right at the very, very end, it's the last thing he says, and then it goes back to the Mahabharata, because that's the ultimate highest principle. Dharma is just something it's just something you do when you have a body mind. And you have to live with other bodies and minds in what we call civic society. And so there has to be ways that people can harmoniously live together and thrive. And that's dharma, but that's not ultimate. The ultimate thing, the ultimate dharma is to surrender completely to God. In the Bhagavata Purana, it actually redefines dharma. It says the real dharma. Okay, you have the dharma of the body, you have dharma to your parents, you have dharma to your society, you have dharma to the sages, dharma, remember the verse we just read, dharma to the forefathers, dharma to the celestials, dharma to the cows. You have dharma to all these things in samsara, but what's the dharma of the Atman? These are bodily mind dharmas. Bhagavatam says that the Atman has a dharma too, and that's surrender to Bhagavan completely, 100%. So Krishna, after a whole Gita talking about dharma, he ends by saying, oh, by the way, there's a higher principle, and that's just surrender completely unto me. He doesn't, and so the Krishna bhaktas think that the Bhagavatam picks up where the Gita leaves off, because we see what that looks like with the gopis. When they surrender, they leave everything and they run and they go to be with Krishna. And then we see what that highest, the dharma of the soul is. They hear the call of God and they just rush out the door. And some of them are even blocked by their family, and they just go on their subtle body. They actually leave their gross bodies behind. That's how intense their mental meditation is. So but you make a good point. And the Gita is all about dharma, but at the end it wants to inform us that that all this dharma is just for samsara. Well, what's the dharma towards Bhagavan? The ultimate dharma. Okay, offer your material things, fine, act without attachment, fine, but ultimately complete and utter surrender is the dharma. And that's illustrated in 1866. And you can't, stress that too much in a text like the Gita, because then people would give up their dharma and say they're doing it for Bhagavan, but then they're just going to run off and be nonsense and then abandon their wives and abandon their families. And, so you don't want to make a huge thing about that. But that dharma of the soul is to surrender to God. So he just pops it in at the very, very end and then walks away from it. And then the Bhagavatam picks it up. Yeah. Thank you.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. And that would be, my eyes are going, Shri Steve. Shriman. Shriman.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for your teaching. I would like to ask if you could say a bit more, this distinction between bhakti and moksha and the trivialization of moksha. Could you say a bit more? Do you happen to know sort of the birth of this idea into the teaching? Does this originate with a specific text or with a specific sort of individual's, to use kind of a Western word, revelation? And I guess as the idea gains purchase, are there any kind of prevailing political, ethnic, economic conditions that kind of make it, that might elevate the importance of drawing that distinction?
Well, that's a very academic sort of question, because academics tend to see things historically and chronologically, and that's fine. But we certainly see it all over the Puranas, and the Puranas go back to the beginning of the Common Era. You might see a little bit in the Shvetashvatara, which is, by academic dates, 3rd, 4th century BCE. So probably scholars would see it as a development, and that bhakti is kind of that bhakti is not really there. It really emerges in the late Upanishads and then pervades the whole subcontinent. They would see it that way. So they would look for chronological, beginnings. And if you try to identify some social, you'll be just completely and utterly swimming in the realm of speculation. Not you, meaning one. And no doubt theories have been proposed to explain what academics would identify as a historical emergence of something. So if it emerges historically, then the historian looks at the context and tries to find socio-political, psychological reasons. Remember, academics are reductionistic. They don't necessarily believe in revelations, whether from God or from the minds of sages. They're historians, so they are looking for historical reasons for the emergence of things, and they will have so many theories, and they're all highly speculative, and they don't take very deeply in academic sort of sources. But so I can't do better than that. The tradition would say, of course, the bhakti is, is eternal, because God is eternal and bhakti is eternal. It's not something that emerges. If we really wanted to put on a historian's hat, we would have to say that the Vedas is bhakti in the Vedas, but the Vedas are bhakti to the celestials, not to a monotheistic Ishvara. So there's no sense of a monotheistic Ishvara in the Vedas. There are some of the names we encountered here. Indra is a quarter of the hymns of the Rig Veda to Indra. We met him twice in our reading today. So that's bhakti, but it's a gimme bhakti, and it's not a monotheistic bhakti. It's a bhakti to a plethora of celestial beings. So bhakti goes right back to the earliest Rig Veda. But if the question is a monotheistic bhakti, that you don't actually, you have a few verses in the older Upanishads, but really it's the Shvetashvatara and the Isha where you really get a monotheistic, very strong monotheism emerging if we're looking at it from a chronological lens. But the Puranic stories, we don't really know how old they are. We just know that they reached their written form by the 4th century of the Common Era. That's when they're written and compiled. The 18 Puranas that we know now, we know that, so that's a terminus a quo, or whatever the Latin is, that, sometime before that, these stories have been percolating for, we don't know, centuries. All we know is when they actually reach their final written form. The Puranas are the Bhakti stories. The Puranas are the texts, the genre texts, which are Bhakti texts, monotheistic of Bhakti. We don't know how long the stories have been in circulation. We just know that they were in the Gupta period, in the imperial power of the Gupta. Then there was imperial, sort of Hindu Brahmanism. And so the kings sponsored the Brahmins to write down, and the Puranas were written down at that time. But they were written down. They weren't composed. They were taking these stories that had been floating around in the intellectual landscape of ancient India, and the Brahmins then composed them and compiled them into what we now call as the 18 Puranas. But how old the stories are, no one can say. So that's not much of an answer, but it's best I could do. Yeah. Okay. Sure. Any other questions, my friends, or are we ready for Kirtan? Alex is up there.
Hello, Edwin.
Hey, Alex.
Last week you had mentioned a split in the Sri Vaishnavites,
yes,
and the idea of the bhakti with the kitten,
yeah,
and with the infant monkey. And
yeah,
I'd asked about Guruji Iyengar, and
yeah,
which was he. You directed me to Christine Bell.
yeah.
Briefly, she said that that's a very good question. She's not far enough along in her research to give a definite answer.
Yeah.
But she did say that he often has talked about how much effort was required in his sadhana.
Okay.
And then she also noted that people often are multidimensional and might not fall easily into one specific category. But that she'd look into it more.
Yeah. You know what you can do, though? And it just occurred to me. It should be reflected in the name. So it would be reflected in the name of the two sub-traditions. They would have a name like Venkatachala, whatever it might be, right? So they actually have a name. I know that. So then you'd have to find out those two names. So go in and say, what are the names for the Sri Vaishnava kitten tradition? You could do that right on Wiki. And then try to find out what Krishnamacharya, for example, what you probably easier to find it with Krishnamacharya because there's much more lineage embedded, and find out which of the two. See if you can do that, Alex, and that'll be a lovely saver for our Sangha for next week. Okay, Jai Shri Krishna.
Jai Shri Krishna.
Any other questions, my friends? I don't see any other hands up. So we will move on to Cecilia. If she is there, we know she's there. Cecilia, there you are.
Yeah, sure.
Welcome again, Cecilia. And thank you once more for joining us. And we're in your hands. So take us to a place, one of these, a number of these 64 processes spoke about singing and kirtan. So thank you for taking us, for guiding us into the beautiful names of Sri Krishna and allowing us to absorb our minds in sonic divine presence. Thank you, Cecilia.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Haribol.
Haribol, Haribol. Thank you, Cecilia.
Thank you. It was lovely.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So have a great evening, everybody. And we'll see you next week. And we'll be going over the 64 practices with the quotes from there's quite a lot. So we have to decide if we're going to do every single verse, it's going to be longer than 6 weeks. So if you're interested in that, let me know. Because you look at you look at it yourself. We left off, we have now, we're on page 39. Remember, it's every other page. So 39, right? So that's taken us 3 weeks. So let's say we've done about 12 pages, but the whole of the second wave goes from 39 to 85. So that's the same as what we've just done. So if it's taken us 3 weeks to do this, it would take it, let's say at least 2. So that'd be 5 weeks, and then we got Bhav and Prem. So we'll have to spill over. So let me know if you want to, or the other thing is I don't like the idea of skipping some of the verses, or maybe if there's 2 or 3 verses for one point, we just pick out one. I like the idea of just following the footsteps of the acharyas, but let me know how you feel about that. Okay, we can maybe just this next bit, not the Bhav and the Prem are short chapters, and we'll study them carefully. But the 64, the illustrations from the Bhagavatam and other texts to illustrate each of those 64. If you want to not skip exactly, but truncate them a bit, and maybe if there's 3 or 4 verses illustrating, just pick one. Let me know your feelings about that.
No.
Pardon?
No.
That's a no there. Yeah, but there's a lot of you, so maybe people feel.
Do it all, Edwin.
Do it all. Well, send me some emails and let me know. Okay, good people. Have a great evening. And Jai Sri Radhe.
Radhe Shyam.
Thank you again, Cecilia. Wonderful as always.
Thank you, Edwin.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.